This is your morning Buzzcast for Tuesday, August 5th. I'm Abe Madkour. We've said a few different times there would be consolidation coming in sports, especially around startups and especially around women's volleyball. We have said for some time there would be no way that 3 or 4 volleyball leagues could survive in such a new market. And now we are seeing the first sign of consolidation as the Pro Volleyball Federation will merge with Major League Volleyball. They'll see Dallas joining in during the league's 3rd season. The Pro Volleyball Federation finished its 2nd season in May, but remember, they lost one of their top teams, the Omaha Supernovas, who was moving to Major League Volleyball. So now we will see a newly combined league under the name Major League Volleyball. It will run in 2026 with 8 teams. The league plans to expand in 2027 with teams in Washington, D.C. and California. So Major League Volleyball initially launched in January with $100 million in funding from investors. That included Sacramento Kings owner Vivek Ranadive, also Olympian Kerry Walsh Jennings. So they had some horsepower, they had some revenue, they had some resources behind it. Now this merger into Major League Volleyball consolidates a crowded yet emerging space in the sport. Remember, we talked before, 4 new leagues started play over the last few years. And remember, there's Love, and that remains the primary competition for Major League Volleyball. There's also Athletes United, but their season runs at a different time of the year and also features several players from both Major League Volleyball and Love. So they are considered a little bit different. So now, in this volleyball game, the focus turns to League One up against Major League Volleyball. Again, this is a growing space, and now we're seeing some consolidation. Let's move on. No expansion yet for the men's and women's NCAA basketball tournaments, which will not be expanding this season, but the committees will continue conversations as to whether to recommend expanding to 72 or more likely 76 teams in advance of the 27 tournaments. So why did they stay at 68 teams? Well, right now, they kind of ran out of room on the calendar to make a change. Also, there wasn't a lot of, I would say, drive to expand the tournament. The TV networks weren't all that excited about amending their television deal, and these would almost be likened to more play-in games. But there is still conversation about expanding the tournament. I would expect it to expand likely to 76 teams in the future, and that would come with an amended TV deal and a new schedule. But all is on hold for the 26 tournaments remaining at 68 teams. While we acknowledge the ambitions around the MLB Speedway Classic on Monday, let's acknowledge it wasn't without issues. And that always happens whenever you get more than 90,000 fans in one venue. And on Monday, Bristol Motor Speedway President Jerry Caldwell apologized for circumstances that left some fans, dissatisfied with their experience at the game. Now, we had seen a number of social posts on Saturday night expressing frustration over long lines, a shortage of food, a shortage of beverages at concession stands. Caldwell acknowledged they had some challenges later in the evening on Saturday around concessions. He cited the rain delay went about 30% longer than they expected. That put major stress on all of their concession services. Interestingly, on Saturday, baseball did not allow fans to bring outside food and beverage into the stadium. And that contrasts with Bristol Motor Speedway's policy on race weekends where fans can bring in outside food and beverages. On Sunday, they changed the policy. Fans were allowed to bring in food and non-alcoholic beverages, but again, there was stress on the system on Saturday with long lines, with running out of food. Bristol Motor Speedway acknowledged that. That's what happens when you get 90,000 fans in a venue and there's a long wait and a long rain delay that pushes people into the concourse looking for food and beverage. So while the event incredibly ambitious, and most would say successful, certainly some pain points to figure out in the future. As some of you know, I was on the West Coast for the last 2 weeks, and I spent some time in Portland, Oregon. And the city had a great vibe, great weather, great energy, and there's a lot of talk in that city about the future of the Trailblazers. We know the Trailblazers are up for sale, and a group of local leaders are pushing hard to keep the team in Portland. And that will certainly mean with a new arena. So this local group is called Rip City Forever, and they're going to underwrite a study of the cost and the size and the location of any new venue. The Moda Center was built in 1995, so it's on its 30th year, which of course is on the high end for any sports venue. The city needs a new arena. The Blazers do have a special place in Portland and the city's history, and the city doesn't underestimate the impact the NBA has on that marketplace. I think it's vital that that team stays in Portland. In Sports Business Journal this week, our cover story is on Blazers owner Jody Allen, who is the sister of the late Paul Allen. And technically, Jody Allen is the executor of Paul Allen's estate and the sole trustee of his assets. So one of his assets is, of course, the Blazers. Another one of his assets, the Seahawks in the NFL. And she represents both of those franchises. Eventually, she is required by the terms of Paul Allen's will to sell both the Blazers and the Seahawks. And so this is an interesting story about one of the more unusual owners in sports, certainly worth your time. Check it out as the cover story in this week's Sports Business Journal. You know, we talk a lot about the drive for influencers and targeting influencers these days and how important it is to reach new audiences. ESPN, they feel they have landed a very impactful voice as Katie Feeney. She is a 22-year-old social media influencer, starts this week at ESPN. So you will see this young influencer across ESPN's social channels. She will be on air. She will host SportsCenter on Snapchat. This fall, she will travel to Monday Night Football and College Game Day. Now, who is Katie Feeney? She has nearly 8 million TikTok followers, plus another million each on Instagram and Snapchat. She has a significant following, largely of young people, and that is what ESPN wants to draft off. And she is at the center of sports, she's at the center of culture, lifestyle, and youth. And that's a good spot, and that's where ESPN wants to be. Right now, currently, she posts 2 or 3 times per day on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and between 50 to 100 times on Snapchat. And ESPN acknowledged it was very interested in reaching the young women who follow Katie Feeney. And that reminds me of a back and forth I had yesterday with a leader of a big sports marketing agency. Their point to me, they are seeing corporate brands move away from women's sports to female fans. So what do I mean by that? Well, brands are focusing a lot on addressing the female sports fan versus just thinking their answer is sponsoring women's sports. The total market for female sports fans is significant, and brands want to play in that space. They want to talk to female sports fans directly, regardless of whether it's men's or women's sports. There's also recognition of the huge and underserved female fandom, and that is what ESPN is focused on here, and that is a trend to watch. Finally, we'll end with this. Red Sox Nation, yes, they are very pleased with the team's recent winning streak. And if you are watching the Red Sox play the Royals tonight, you will see an all-female production crew on NESN. This is the first time this will happen. It's part of Women's Celebration Night at Fenway Park. So from the broadcast booth to the on-field to the studio show and game and studio production, it will be an all-female production for Women's Celebration Night at Fenway Park. Check it out tonight if you get and watch NESN for the game Red Sox Royals Women's Celebration Night at Fenway Park. I will be in New York for the rest of the week. My colleagues will bring you the Buzzcast for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'll return next week. That is your morning Buzzcast for Tuesday, August 5th. I'm Abe Madkour. Thanks for listening. Stay healthy. Be good to each other. I'll speak to you down the road.